In the 15th century, at the time of Pesach every year, the Jews would be accused of kidnapping and draining the blood of a Gentile child to mix his blood into their matzah, their unleavened bread. To make this accusation stick, Christians would hire a man to take a poor homeless child, murder him, and plant his body somewhere in a Jewish community under cover of darkness. On one particular evening, on the 15th of Nisan, when Rabbi Judah Loew was about to enter the world, his mother ran into complications during his birth, and Jews hurried outside to fetch a midwife to help with the labour. During this time, one such murderer was walking past, carrying a large sack with the body of a child, aiming to plant the body and then report it to the authorities. The Jews came across the perpetrator and recognised him and tried to catch him, and the chase drew the attention of the night watchman. Seeing the man running while carrying a sack with people pursuing him, the night watchman caught him red-handed. That Pesach, the Jewish community was saved. So began the life of the most extraordinary rabbi of the medieval period, whose life echoed the same blueprint of that miraculous night. By not only dedicating his life to the preservation of the Torah, but to the preservation of the Jewish people as well. So join me as we look into the life of Rabbi Judah Loew ben Bezalel. When you think about Rabbi Judah Loew, what is the first thing that pops into your head? If we're being completely honest, it's this big guy here, the Golem, that pops straight in there. It's understandable, it is an intriguing story, and if you go to Prague today, you won't get very far without something related to the Golem popping up right in front of you in broad daylight. Many people deny the existence of the Golem of Prague, chiefly because anything about it didn't get published until about 1834, but where there is smoke there is fire, and there are other less famous stories including the account of Rav Kanina and Rav Osheya using a mystical work called the Sefer Yetzirah, which means the Book of Formation, to create a calf that they would eat every Shabbat. In fact, Rabbi Loew thought about the phenomenon on the same level as the simple act of prayer, which can also create realities. But as I have already done a video focusing exclusively on the Golem, I'll try to keep our focus on the man himself. Known as the Maharal of Prague, Judah Loew was born in the year 5285, which is 1525 of the Common Era, and lived until 1609. But other sources list the year of his birth at 1512, 1520, and 1526. He was born in the city of Poznan in Poland, and his family were of noble standing, originating from the Rhinish town of Worms. His title, the Maharal, is an acronym for Morenu Harav Loew, meaning our teacher Rabbi Loew. The name Loew is derived from the German word Loew, meaning lion. The word Leib, used sometimes instead, is a Yiddish term originating from the same word. The name Yehuda or Judah, as in the tribe of Judah, is also symbolized by a lion. Yehuda means preemptive praise, denoting the matriarch Leah's overwhelming praise over the birth of her fourth son, even before knowing her newborn's condition. Once they matured into a tribe, Hashem would constantly use this merit by calling them into battle first. The name Loew itself probably derives from the title of one of his many works entitled Gur Haryeh al HaTorah, meaning young lion commenting on the Torah. The name Bezalel means the protective shadow of Elohim, no doubt connected to his protective nature and the lengths he was prepared to go to in keeping his community safe during the time of vicious blood libels. Blood libels at this time were so bad that some Jews were recorded as going into cemeteries and digging their own graves, enabling them to at least know after they were found that they were most likely going to be buried after they were slaughtered. it. Rabbi Judah Loew's prayers to protect his community must have been so intense that the city of Prague itself, where he resided for many years, became one of the few European cities to escape large-scale destruction during World War II. In fact, his synagogue, originally built in the year 1270, survived the First and Second World War, several great fires and flooding, and is still standing today in all its medieval Gothic splendor, and is the oldest still functioning synagogue in Europe. Many people mistakenly call it the Old New Synagogue, even in published literature, tourist brochures and the like, but the name Old New Synagogue is derived from the Hebrew expression pronounced alt-nay, meaning on condition. However, in Yiddish, this expression means both old and new. The story is that two angels bought two precious stones from the Holy Temple in Jerusalem to be used in its construction, but on condition that they be returned when Mashiach arrives. Now let's get back to the man himself. At the age of 12, the Maharal went into a yeshiva in Poland and studied under Rabbi Yaakov Polak. After Polak left the country, he spent 2 years wandering from place to place and then went into the yeshiva of Rabbi Yitzhak Clover and learnt together with Rabbi Shlomo Luria, known as the Mahashal, and Rabbi Moshe Israelis for 3 years. Altogether, he spent about 20 years studying before he married his wife Pearl, who gave him 6 daughters and 1 son. His wife was the daughter of a wealthy merchant, which allowed him more time to devote himself to Torah scholarship. The Maharal's wife, Pearl, was a brilliant Talmudic scholar in her own right. She helped her husband write some of the responsim and arrange and edit his literary works. The Lubavitcher Rebbe of blessed memory wrote of this woman in his memoirs saying, "Now even Pearl could feel free to sit and study. Every day she had a lesson with her husband, and not only did they study Talmud and Halacha together, but also ethics and metaphysics. She used to say about herself that since she was 8 years old, not a day went by that she didn't study for at least 5 hours. After she married the Maharal, many people would send him halakhic questions, and it was she who would read out the questions to him and then write down his replies. She arranged and edited all the Maharal's literary works. It is told that in at least 8 places she found errors in her husband's writings, and these were errors in quotes of the sages or the commentary of Rashi." End of quote. Though Rabbi Loew looms large in Jewish culture and law, the woman behind him has largely been lost to history. According to an account retold in Sefer Niflot HaMaral, an early 20th century collection of tales about the famous rabbi, and it tells the story of how Reb Shmelk Reich, Pearl's father, a wealthy respected figure who arranged for the marriage between his daughter and Rabbi Loew to a then promising 15-year-old Torah scholar. Young Yehuda headed off to yeshiva to learn, and in the meantime, Reb Shmelk's fortunes reversed, unable to pay a dowry for his daughter to wed. 3 years after the marriage was arranged, Reb Shmelk wrote to his son-in-law-to-be, letting him know that seeing as he could not afford a respectable dowry, the young man was freed of his commitment and he didn't have to marry Pearl after all. The young man would not hear of it, writing back that he would wait for assistance from on high. Reb Shmelk's fortunes didn't turn around, yet Yehuda continued to wait and wait and wait. The righteous Pearl decided to help her parents out by opening a small bakery and selling bread to support her family. She worked in the bakery for 10 years, while her betrothed continued to learn Torah, waiting for the day he could marry his beloved. Then, war broke out. A horseman galloped up to Pearl's shop, spearing a large loaf of bread that was sitting out. She courageously ran after the horseman, pleading with him not to steal the bread, explaining that her livelihood and those of her aging, impoverished parents depended on income from her shop. The horseman argued that he had no money, not even enough to pay for the loaf of bread. Instead, he offered an extra saddle blanket that he picked up from another soldier, violently throwing it at her and riding away. When the frightened Pearl calmed down and went to inspect the blanket, she found it was surprisingly heavy. So heavy, in fact, that when she picked it up, it ripped and gold coins came tumbling out. She promptly gave the riches to her father, who used them for the dowry, and after more than a decade of waiting, Pearl and Yehuda were married. Rabbi Loew won the admiration of his great contemporaries, Rabbi Solomon Luria, the Mahashal, which we mentioned earlier, and Rabbi Meir Maharim of Lublin, and others who called him affectionately the Iron Pillar supporting Yisrael. Rabbi Loew wrote many works on rabbinic subjects, one of the most important of which is the Ger Aryeh, a commentary on Rashi's commentary on the Chumash. Some of his best works are centered on Jewish philosophy and ethics. In his writings and teachings, he laid stress on understanding the simple literal meaning of the passages studied, avoiding the complicated form of study known as pilpul. He insisted that children should have a thorough knowledge of the Bible and Mishnah before taking up the study of the Talmud. His writings, particularly his commentary on the Pirkei Avot, the Ethics of the Fathers, and the collection of his lectures such as the Nezak Yisrael, the Eternity of Yisrael, and the Netevot Olam, the Way of the World, very much reflect his saintly character. Anyone who takes on serious research into this rabbi can very likely bring with it an extra merit of salvation to this person. How so? Well, one particular man, Rabbi Yitzhak Huntner, who wrote a work called the Pakad Yitzhak, which was heavily based on the teachings of the Maharal, found himself and his family trapped on a plane as hostages on the 6th of September 1970 after it was taken possession of by terrorists. During that time, in a gathering held on the 18th of Elul, the Lubavitcher Rebbe spoke at length about the hostage situation, stating that the hours that Rabbi Huntner toiled over the teachings of the Maharal, whose yahrzeit was that very same day, should stand him in good stead, and it should be like it was for the Maharal when he brought salvation to the Jews at this time, said the Rebbe. And then he went on to say, if salvation could come naturally, then that would be fine, but that if a miracle would be needed, then that too would be fine. And lo and behold, Rabbi Huntner and his family were miraculously released. A little time after the incident, he paid a special visit to the Rebbe to thank him for his prayers. So studying the Jewish sages could one day very well save your life. Thank you again for joining me on another episode of Insight into the Jewish sages. Bye for now. If you like the content of this channel, get a hold of this book. It is literally jam-packed with information you will not find in most Torah publications. Its pages include topics like the fable of the money-hungry Jew, the lie that propelled the Holocaust, the real root of anti-Semitism, rightly dividing Mashiach, which contains startling truths about the Messiah you will not read anywhere else, Judaism in the New Testament, updated information about the creation of the Golem and the false Messiah, the commandment to wage war, the truth about the Shield of David, a compendium of all the false teachings in the Messianic movement to help you navigate what is truth, biblical capital punishment, and why you should be frightened of sinning, the significance of the land of Israel, the obligations of the student, the eye in the triangle, sanctified sex, how to think like a Jew, and much, much more. There is also an updated chapter 1, and along with all the other chapters, has hundreds of footnotes and references. This is a book that took 10 years to research and compile, and will be a welcome addition to the library of any discerning student of Torah and Mashiach. Get it today on Amazon and other online bookstores. Bye for now.